Well, if your kids are 12 to 25 years old, they belong to, yes, Generation Z. And this generation, well, it's been a little different for them. They were raised with social media, the economic collapse of 2008, and COVID, of course. They're redefining cultural norms on a variety of fronts. Well, today, Isabel Brown is joining us. She's an influencer and the author of End of the Alphabet. She's joining us today to talk about how she thinks this generation is the one that is going to save America. Welcome to the Moms for America podcast. Each week, special guests tackle the issues facing the moms of America today. Discussions include personal stories and advice on how moms can build a strong foundation of faith, family, and freedom in their homes and country. Hi, moms. I'm Debbie Carlitis, your host, and welcome again to the Moms for America podcast. So glad that you're joining us again this week. Right here at the top of the show, I always ask you, mamas, to please like, subscribe, and share. We do appreciate that. That's how we get our information out as they try to censor us. So please share this, especially this one you're going to want to share with your Generation Z kiddos. Alrighty, I also, at the top of the show, want to invite everyone to join Moms for America. If you're a part of our group, great. If you're not, join. Moms for America is a powerful group of moms. We're about 500,000 moms strong all across the country. We're uniting together to fight for our faith, family, freedom, and the Constitution. You can check us out at momsforamerica.us. Stop by there, join our newsletter, look at all of our information. We have so much information for you moms that will help you as you teach, train, and raise your children. Also, if you have a topic or a guest or feedback, would you please email me at podcast@momsforamerica.net. I would truly love to hear from you. On to today's program. Isabel Brown is a full-time live streamer and independent content creator who is giving a voice to Generation Z. She regularly speaks to high school students and college campuses all across the country, and she appears on many media outlets as well. Her most recent book is The End of the Alphabet: How Generation Z Can Save America. And you are going to absolutely love her. All right. Well, welcome, Isabel. We are so glad to have you. This is going to really be a fun discussion, I got a feeling.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and so grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, well, mamas, we're going to talk about Gen Z. We've either got one or no one. And Isabel's just really done a great job being an influencer, a content creator in her space and in her world. So, Isabel, tell us a little bit about you so we can get to know you. I hear that there's wedding bells in the future there.
Indeed, yes. I'm getting married exactly 60 days from today, which is crazy. I have a lot of last minute planning to do still as I've been traveling across the country on a book tour the last month and a half or so. So now it's wedding crunch time. But I'm so excited to be meeting all of the listeners of your show and really a big fan of everything you guys are doing for women. My name's Isabel Brown. I am a full-time independent content creator, which is basically a fancy way of saying I make videos on the internet for a living that often ruffle a few feathers. I wear a lot of other hats too, though, every day. I'm a very, very busy public speaker and I travel the country doing a lot of speaking engagements. I'm an author and just had a book released about a month and a half ago about Generation Z and our unique cultural and political identity called The End of the Alphabet: How Gen Z Can Save America. And lots of other crazy stuff in the middle as well. But really, what it boils down to is I like to tell people that every day, my job is to get up and tell people the truth in whatever capacity I can, be that a 15-second video on TikTok or a 3-hour live stream, writing a book, or giving a speech.
Wow. Well, kudos to you, my dear. Kudos to you. And God bless on that beautiful wedding. That's going to be amazing. So I love watching these young women still embrace marriage and all of the gifts that you will have. So it's going to be a great ride for you. And there's really nothing like loving someone and then building a family. So clearly that's what we do here at Moms for America. We encourage everybody. So, so much to chat with you about, and I love that you have an opinion and a good opinion. I've kind of now just kind of looked through all of your videos and the things that you share, but you talk about everything. And really, I think this is true about Gen Z. I'll ask you about it. It's complicated because they're dealing with so many issues at one time. I think
Yeah.
used to, like back in the day when I grew up, back in the day,
Mhm.
things were, you kind of started here. You had a nicer rollout, I'll say, of things, but not with Gen Z, not with this generation. Everything is so compact. Everything is coming at them. I have a 19, a 24, and a 26-year-old. So I understand what they're going through. And many times I feel just overwhelmed for them, whether it's from social media or to a decline in the culture or, just the violence, the attack, the uncertainty of our country. So Gen Z, they're special people. That's what I want to say. They're born for such a time as this, clearly.
Yeah. Oh, I love that perspective. And I actually write about that in my book at length that we are born for such a time as this,
Right.
because really what you're seeing right now in the 2020s is a phenomenon that I like to call the upside down. One of my favorite TV shows is Stranger Things on Netflix. And I really find that this resonates well with people my own age. When you describe the era that we're living in as this other dimension that the kids in that show go to of their hometown, it
It's
looks
true.
pretty similar to what our parents told us their 20s and their college years were like. It kind of feels like when we binge watch Friends over and over again for the 12th time about what your young adult years are supposed to look like. But something is inherently wrong or inverted about this era we are growing up in and coming into adulthood in. Up is down and left is right. There is no
Mhm.
distinguishable difference between good and evil anymore. Men are women and women are men.
Right.
And so you're watching this growth of the things that we have to fight for in society so far outside of the realm of politics and partisan politics at that in America, but
Mhm.
into every aspect of culture, which is why we often say in the conservative movement that we are fighting a culture war.
It
That term
is.
is not used lightly. It quite literally is an ideological battle of values, of ideas, of principles
Mhm.
that we've been losing for a really
Yeah.
long time. And
Yeah.
I think you're watching this next generation realize the age old truth from the late, great Andrew Breitbart that politics is downstream from culture. You can never expect to change what's happening in the Oval Office or in the halls of Congress if you can't first change how people, oof, there's a fly flying around my living room, can't change how people are living their day to day lives, right? And these topics like marriage and
Right.
nutrition and family and wanting children, like what's happening in big cities versus homesteading, which has become a trend on social media. These are all things that we're excited to talk about in a much more authentic way than
Mhm.
traditionally how media has approached them. I mean, I'm sitting in my home studio right now, which happens to be the spare bedroom of my house in a sweatshirt, which is typically how I stream every single day. I wanted to share that with you guys because it really is this sense of realness and authenticity that's
Mhm.
resonating with Gen Z at a time where the left has created this glossy, edited, hyper false reality that they're
Mhm.
presenting as their definition of utopia.
Right. Well, I think there's well said, obviously. And I think there's so many things that contribute to Gen Z and to this culture. We as parents, many ways, have a hard time understanding, relating, helping, because it's just a different world.
Yeah.
What do you think? What does Gen Z think of themselves? What is
Mm.
their opinion? How does the Gen Z see themselves? And I've asked this of my kids multiple ways, and over the years here. Where are they aligning up when they look at their culture and their world right now?
Such a powerful question. And honestly, one of the reasons I decided to write this book, The End of the Alphabet, because
Yeah.
I've been asked to be a voice for Gen Z and sort of a token voice for our generation in
Yeah.
politics for quite some time, especially in mainstream media, but have always found that there is a bit of a unilateral opinion on who Gen Z is from those older than us. That
Mm.
we are ruining America. We're destroying Western civilization every single day.
Mm.
We're lazy, uneducated, entitled crybaby socialists when that's just not objectively true. It certainly
Mm.
isn't what I see on social media as a content creator. It isn't what I engage with on campus when I speak to high school and college students. And it's certainly not what we believe of ourselves. Actually, if you look at lifestyle and culture, Gen Z is proving ourselves to be the most conservative generation America has seen since World War II. But it's so much,
We've got to stop there.
yeah.
Really? I mean, I don't know if I would say that statement. I mean, my guys are conservative. Their circle's conservative. They love the Lord. They've got a good idea of politics and the reality of what's happening. But you saying you feel that across the board with Gen Z.
Exactly. And it's funny, all of the interviews that we've done related to our book tour, I often get told from the host, well, my kids are like that, but I don't know that that's true of society at
I
large.
don't. Yeah, I guess
This
because we
cultural
yeah,
pendulum swing is so powerful, and it is
yeah.
manifesting across all of our 70 million members of our generation born between 1997 and 2012. And what do I mean by culture? It goes back to what we just said. It's not who you're voting for president of the United States or what bill is being debated in Congress. Those things are important. But more importantly, 93% of our generation says that we still want to get married in a time that we have the lowest marriage rate in American history. We're waking up and realizing we don't need to spend $250,000 on a degree in, I don't know, let's talk about this week, LGBTQ jihad and camping in the middle of our college campuses for
Right.
Gaza and Hamas and trying to actively harm other students, because that's not a real education.
Mhm.
Instead, we're choosing meaningful degree paths. We're going to trade school at record high rates. The
Right.
Wall Street Journal just reported on this. Or 62% of us have already started our own businesses in this realm of a renaissance of entrepreneurship, even on a lot of the smaller things that I think people don't necessarily think about in terms of dramatically changing culture. You're watching Gen Z rebel against the left by taking ownership and responsibility for our lives. We're
Mhm.
quitting our hormonal birth control in droves, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, because we don't want to be beholden to big pharma every day. We're
Mhm.
eating real food instead of crap grown out of chemicals in a laboratory that's marketed as healthier to us, like a Beyond Burger. We're moving out of big cities. And most importantly, we're believing in God again with greater
Mm.
numbers year over year and seeking a connection with something bigger than our broken secular world.
Mhm.
What that means in terms of what we think of ourselves, I think is really powerful. And to answer your previous question, it means that we see ourselves as the ones responsible for the trajectory of our country, culture, and
Yes,
world
the
moving
future.
forward. There's a sense of personal responsibility and accountability there. And it might look different from how things have always been done in America. It might look different from the traditional political conservatism of the last several decades. For example, we've started our own businesses, but we're not carrying a briefcase wearing a suit to an office every day from 9 to 5.
Right.
In returning to our white picket fence in our traditional family, we're living out of camper vans or all over the world while we manage 4 businesses at once, which is very cool. There is a sense of that
Right.
independent, uh, almost pioneer mentality of forging our own trail that I think is so powerful and very cool to be a part of.
I love that. I love what you're saying, and truly, you do see this. You do see the creative ness of this culture. But I do think that, and I'm asking for your opinion on this. Gen Z, I feel like they were like, "Hey, you guys sold us a bill of goods. You think you're going to control the narrative. You think you're going to control me, but I'm
Yeah.
not really buying into it anymore. I might have in the beginning because social media, I think, was used as manipulative." And I think everybody's coming out of that. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And this sense of wanting to question everything, to be very curious, but also a bit cautious about just blindly believing something, I think is really
Mhm.
driving our political ideology more than anything. It's fascinating when I hear that Gen Zers are these overwhelming leftists and they all support the Democrat Party and are very socialistic, groupthink mentality oriented. Because actually, the pendulum swing is far in the other direction. We are hyper individualistic and very critical in our independent
Mm.
thinking of political issues happening today. Of newly registered voters going into November, 53% of Gen Zers are self registering as independent with a capital I. They are
Yeah.
saying to what's really become the uniparty in Washington, I am not giving you my blind allegiance just because I happen to like one of your candidates, or that's how my parents voted, or this is how everybody in my community votes. I need to make sure that I am voting for someone who represents my values again. And that might look like an independent person that's breaking free from the traditional political narrative.
Mhm.
On media in particular,
Yeah.
social media, I think, was set up, as you're right, to be sort of a propagation tool for a lot of the same propaganda we're seeing in the mainstream media. But amazingly, we've utilized it as a tool for good every single day. And for
That's
the
right.
first time, somebody carrying this in their pocket has the same capacity to influence hundreds of millions of people, more than, say, the president of the United States sitting in a sweatshirt in the spare bedroom of their apartment or their house, or even in their dorm room or the passenger seat of their car,
Mhm.
simply because we have the opportunity for virality that social media has to offer.
Exactly. And I think too, I think people are looking for perspectives. They're looking for connection. They're looking for someone that can educate them. I mean, we've seen this with Joe Rogan, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
people are interested in different perspectives. And I think that's really exploded. And to your point, and I think this is why you've got such a great following and so many influencers because people are interested in hearing. Oh, okay. Well, I would thought this way, but now that you're mentioning that, maybe I won't think that way anymore. And that's to Gen Z's credit, clearly.
Absolutely. That intellectual curiosity is so important and is easily the most rebellious thing we could possibly be engaging in a society that's demanding authoritarian lockstep with Marxism ideology, really from every direction of culture. I read something on my live stream the other day that blew my mind, and I had never been exposed to in my own educational journey until a few months ago at a
Mhm.
fundraiser that the 45 goals of the Communist Party from the 1960s were actually read into the congressional
Yeah.
record
All
in
right.
1963. And their goals 60 plus years ago were to take over the education system to
Sure.
promote Marxism, to take over the media and journalism to
Mm.
promote Marxism and propaganda, to take over the entertainment industry, to
The
increase the number
churches.
of
Yes.
divorces, the church, etc. So really you do see hyper groupthink Marxist ideology coming toward Gen Z from every direction in
Yeah.
culture and society today. But just like every generation before us, every group of young people wants to rebel against the people who came before them. It just
Hmm.
so happens that to be rebellious and punk rock and radically countercultural today is to embrace timeless, traditional, conservative cultural values, to
Right.
question everything, to do the research yourself, and to take responsibility for your own life.
Amen, sister. And I think you're so right too. I think I just think that Gen Z has such an incredible perspective because they've had so much thrown at them. To your point, Anna, and I think that they are probably the ones that are going to really save this country, this next generation. And I know you believe that as well. You believe that this generation really is going to be the hope for America.
Absolutely, which goes back to the roots of our country at large as well. I love asking high school and college students to describe the founding fathers because maybe one of the most powerful lies of the left is that our country was founded by, and this is the answer I get every time, old white men, right? I hear that
Right.
1,000 times a day. Not that there's anything
Right.
necessarily wrong with being an old white man, but
Right.
we've twisted this narrative that these were geriatric, ancient, mentally incapable individuals who couldn't
Yeah.
possibly have built the greatest society the world has ever seen. But on July 4th, 1776, James
That's right.
Monroe was 18,
I
Aaron
mean,
Burr was
right.
20,
Look at
John
this.
Marshall was 20, Alexander Hamilton was only 21. This idea of young punk rock patriots willing to speak truth to
Mhm.
power is the very foundation of this country. And you contrast that with what's happening in American politics and culture today. We all watched the State of the Union, which honestly felt like watching a live simulcast of the world's most expensive nursing home, if we're
Oh,
being totally
yes.
honest with ourselves. And it's people who have held on to power for longer than twice the time we've been alive, insisting we are the only people who can solve these problems over and over and over again, while refusing to give a seat at the table to this next generation for new
Mhm.
ideas
Yeah.
in leadership. We can't continue operating that way if we really want to have a fighting chance to save Western civilization from utter destruction. And I think the last several weeks, in particular, with these encampment protests happening across the country, have been a
Yeah.
very powerful realization of that.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that is in the news and it's happening. I'm here in Illinois. It's happening at Northwestern. It's happening all across the country. This isn't anything new. I mean, people have done this throughout history, these protests, but it does seem like the agitation is now at an all-time high. It
Yeah.
does seem like the students are being used. Propaganda. A lot of these students don't even go to these campuses, these universities. They're bussed in. I guess we know the show, but the show is still happening, and it's actually very dangerous.
You hit the nail on the head. I could not have said that better myself, Deb, because the truth is, most of these students who are protesting on college campus, I'm going to use that with big quotes, are not students. They are paid protesters, and it's
Right.
being exposed as such in a lot of the man on the street interviews that we're seeing posted to social media. The tents at these campuses all look the same, the signs all look the same. There's very
Hmm.
strategic, scripted messaging from larger organizations, mostly funded by George Soros, like
Right.
Students for Justice Palestine, that are very well coordinated across the country. I even had a mom of a college student comment on one of my TikTok videos about this last week, saying her daughter at Ohio State University was offered almost $3,000 cash to sit in the Ohio State encampment for 8 hours, just to sit there to like make it look like there were more actual students participating in this. Meanwhile,
Unreal.
actual Gen Zers, students, are posting videos all over the internet saying this is insane. I just want to go to school. I just want to
Right.
have graduation. I don't want any part of this. And so it's a very interesting narrative that I
Mhm.
think a lot of these powerful elite leftists are trying to blame on our generation when they are the ones strategically orchestrating all of this. But the
Mhm.
radicalism is what we really need to be paying attention to. I'm
Yeah.
watching Hezbollah flags be flown on college campuses, Hamas flags, the Taliban flag I've seen several times, not to mention ISIS as well. I mean, there are really insane,
Right.
legitimate calls for terrorism happening in America. And with Columbia choosing to finish the school semester online and USC caving and canceling graduation, I think we've set a really dangerous
It
precedent for
is.
this fall semester to look like COVID because we can't guarantee student safety. We might just not go back to school at all.
Wow, what a crazy world it is right now. Um, just insanity in every corner. I think the point that you're bringing up is really interesting too. And again, it's not a new tactic, but you get a small, loud crowd and all of a sudden now it's happening on everywhere, or it is everything, or it is the
Yeah.
generation. And they're masters at this. The left is masters at this, of having those loud people all of a sudden become the voice of this generation. And they're not. They're absolutely not. And I wholeheartedly believe that these young people all across the country are very frustrated with what's being pushed on them and dictated to them. And they are rising up and they are speaking up. And you're seeing that. I mean, are you seeing more young women coming and being a part of your community more and more? I mean, what's the movement like inside the
Hmm.
social media world? This is everything to our kids. And I mean, I'm hooked too. I mean, and I'm in my 50s. So this isn't, this is all of us. We are living in
Yeah.
this world of messaging. But what's happening in your world when the girls come to you, you do a live stream? What are they feeling? What are they sharing? What are they hoping to walk away with?
It's interesting you ask about young women in particular because one of the biggest aspects of backlash I get, largely from mainstream media hosts, is that young women are still all leftists, though. And if you look at data and statistics and political
Mm,
polling, they're all still to the left. I don't actually think that's true. And I think we're watching a very interesting pattern of behavior play out to women that previously happened to young men, where the left attacked everything masculine as toxic and evil and needed to be erased from society. That created a temporary period of weak men, of the soy
mhm.
boys, if you want to call them that, that gave rise to voices like Jordan Peterson telling young boys it's okay to be a man.
Yeah.
Masculinity is something that's beautiful. You should lean into that, and our society needs it. The left is now trying to go even further with womanhood. Not that it's toxic or evil or bigoted, but they're just trying to erase womanhood
Destroy it.
altogether. You're a
Right.
birthing person, you're a person who menstruates,
Chest
you're
feeder.
a chest feeder. Yeah, that's insane, but this is a real
It
thing.
sure is.
And so women, I think, are realizing, wow, feminism would rather cheer for a man winning a Woman of the Year award, or a man exposing himself to me in my locker room, or a man taking away an NCAA championship or a scholarship from a woman. That's not feminism.
Mm-mm.
Or this president is rewriting Title IX that I might have to share my dorm room with a man in a
Ridiculous.
dress for 9 months and I can't say anything about it. That's not pro woman. Or even that feminism is telling us never get married. It's a trap. It's going to make you
Right.
miserable. And never have children. It's a trap. It's
Right.
going to make you miserable. But married women are statistically the happiest women with children in
Mhm.
particular. And all of these other women are miserable in society. So you're watching that temporary period where I don't think
Mhm.
people have quite known how to respond in the last couple of
Mhm.
years. But I hear from teenage girls more than any other group of people,
Mm.
this sucks. We're miserable. We hate the left. They have lied to us about everything. I am wanting to get married when I grow up. I'm wanting to have
Mm.
kids when I grow up. I don't want to work in New York for a corporate CEO for 300 hours a week and think that that's a joyful life experience.
Mhm.
And with college women in particular, especially when I speak on the issue of abortion on college campuses, every one of them, doesn't matter their political affiliation, is telling me I'm quitting my hormonal birth control. I'm really tired of hookup culture. I deleted all of my dating apps. There's a hunger there for
Mhm.
something different. And I think the right has struggled with how to message to young women for quite some
Mhm.
time because it's been hijacked by the left entirely. But the opportunity to create a wildly conservative generation of women is right in front of us.
Wow, isn't that hopeful? And it is, it's so true. I think once you try the lie, you understand and embrace the truth. And hopefully, we as moms, my heart just goes out to the kids. Hopefully, we as moms are
Yeah.
examples of, you know what, you can hold your marriage together. You can teach and train and homeschool and have your career at one point, but maybe not at the same time. And you just do things differently, and children are a blessing. They're not a
Mm,
baggage. I think we as moms have got to be preaching this and living it and embracing this with our kids more and more, because we should be their greatest influencers as a mom. Obviously, your mom, your family around you really brought you up. I mean, you didn't pop out like this yourself. You had really great mentors around you, and the importance of that to the moms that are listening. It's not only our kids, we have to be mentoring them
yeah.
stronger than ever.
Absolutely. And your role as a mom really cannot be overstated in terms of the importance of influence in your child's life. With millennials growing up, we watched parents really take this hands-off approach of I'm
Yeah,
never going to talk to my kids about politics or religion or anything values
right.
based. They'll figure it out eventually, but just let them do whatever they want for right now. And you watched an entire group of kids get dropped off for their first day of college at 18, blindly accepting what their professor said, the expert, as truth, and an entire brainwashed generation of people came out the other side to
Sure.
all look different but think exactly the same.
Yeah.
You can be a friend to your child for sure, but your job is not to be their best friend. Your job is to be their parent and to instill values in them that the world is going to do everything it can to try to take away. But hopefully, if you've taken on an active role of parenting your children, they'll know exactly who they are by the time they hit 18 years old, and they'll be willing to conquer the world made for
Mhm.
such a time as this.
Absolutely. And, they're doing it. And I think just as moms, sometimes we get a little gun shy about being too strong, but we have to be stronger, because if we don't teach them, somebody else will. And that's exactly what you just referred to. I think that, sometimes moms are like, let's let them make their own decision. No,
Mhm.
we have to be at the forefront of making the decisions for our kids, and then they can test it out. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to help you make those decisions, and you can go test that out and verify. But somebody else will definitely teach our kids if we're not. Let's talk about everything that this generation is doing is on screen time. I mean, they share everything, and even just some of the things you're talking about. And these aren't things that people were talking about 20 years ago, 30 years ago,
Yeah.
40 years ago. I think that is a plus and a con, a pro and a con, I should say, to this generation. They're willing to share everything, which can be dangerous, and they're willing to share everything, which can be positive. So, how do Gen Zs, how should they balance this? What's your advice on balancing this world
Yeah.
of social media? You got to talk about your sexual intimacy. Do you have to talk about this? Do you have to talk about everything from what you're going to eat at dinner to who you're dating? I mean, it's really is this incredible world that people are sharing everything in. Is that good or bad?
It depends, I think is the simple answer to that, and it certainly is something that I still have to figure out how to balance in my own life. It's a day by day journey, because on one hand, I'm a huge believer in be as what you see is what you get on the internet as possible. When everything is so hyper edited and fake and scripted, people are
Yeah.
really attracted to realness right now, and we desperately need that authenticity for good role models in terms of values in society. But at the same time, people will just share the most out of pocket, insane things that are
Right. Like,
normalizing craziness on
right.
the internet. There's a funny trend on TikTok right now that everybody's saying bring back secrets because it's okay to like keep some things to yourselves. You don't have to say that to
That
everybody.
is something. Yeah, you don't have to say everything you're thinking, and nobody has to know every single one of your thoughts, right? Every
Right,
time you don't
right.
have to get on and say, "Oh my gosh." Like, I feel like that's the scary part of this generation. Everybody's got to get on immediately and share everything. And I think that's where we want to just kind of bring back some of this. Like you said,
And
this is,
yet, you know what the amazing part about it is I think in the midst of us living that, we're realizing the need for authentic in-person connection off of our screens too,
yeah.
right? It's the reason that dating app companies are freaking out how to retain Gen Z as customers because we are wildly deleting dating apps, realizing that it's not good for us and it's not bringing anything meaningful. I read an article the other day that in-person speed dating events are actually making a comeback with this
Mm,
generation because we're hungry for something real. So we're figuring out that balance every day. But just like social media as a platform and as a concept can be used for good or can be used
sure.
for nefarious, terrible purposes, I think that balance is important to figure out a happy medium.
Yeah, true. Isabel, what about the depression? I mean, there's definitely some challenges in this culture. We've got the anxiety, the depression,
Yeah.
suicide rates are high. These are some really serious things that the generation is dealing with regularly, and we as moms for the Gen Zs. What are you seeing regarding that? What is it? 1 in 3 teenager girls have considered suicide.
Yep.
That is off the charts.
It is, and I believe it was 1 in 7 had actually attempted it. That was statistics from the Center for Disease Control,
Wow.
in 2021, and for young teenage boys, it's actually going down, but for adult young men, so the older half of Gen Z, it still remains ridiculously high. So
Yeah.
it's a very, very serious problem that we're dealing with in society, and honestly, it's not very hard to understand why.
Sure.
We've created a culture where there is no such thing as purpose. There's no such thing as
Mm,
morality. There's no such thing as truth because everything has to be subjective based on who wants to yell and scream the loudest that day in culture. So it's easy to remove a sense
mhm,
of foundational value and
mhm.
purpose from society today to the point that I hear from students on campuses that they wish they had been aborted because they don't see any value in their life, which is heartbreaking and so tragic. But I'm also watching us realize in the pit of that despair there's an opportunity to not do what the world is telling us is going to make it better because the hyper overprescription of pharmaceutical drugs for this, the bad talk therapy that Abigail Schreier just wrote about in her recent book, the constant verify my horrible feelings on the internet with affirmative care model we're dealing with today. None of those things are helping. And so we're instead asking, okay, what is going to give me purpose in my life? And I think the revival that we're seeing religiously in this country is really the answer to that. I mean, on a dozen college campuses in the last 2 weeks, I've seen mass baptism events take place in the
Mm,
fountain in the middle of campus. Gen Z is
beautiful.
the most likely Catholic generation in America to prefer the traditional Latin mass. So, like, literally the most countercultural, structured, traditional thing
Right, I would
you could
not even
possibly
think that.
imagine.
Wow.
And parents, I hope are waking up to that reality that you cannot exist in a constantly subjective secular society and then listen to those people for how to fix your kids when they are depressed about it. The constant negative cycle of leftist or secular talk therapy is not going to help your children. Constantly prescribing them with more pharmaceutical drugs is not going to help your children. Continuing to feed them highly processed food that is destroying their health every day is not going to fix them. And so, really asking, okay, how have we done things in the past? And what can we reclaim in terms of responsibility in our own lives to fix this? Not giving it to the government or to the community at large, but being a family unit and being an individual. Maybe that is the first step towards finding purpose again.
Yeah, finding purpose, boy, if we don't have that every day, all of us are lost, and no one wants to open their eyes in the morning, so we do have to keep praying over this generation, and all of us, really, every single person in America is, looking for purpose and hope, and thank you, Lord, for being a part of that every day for us. What would you say to the Gen Zers that are listening to this that would be your words of hope and encouragement? I just love your spirit. I love your truth. I love that God has put a really special calling on you. So, to the Gen Zers that are listening, what are your words of advice in this culture today
Mm.
as they look at their world and are questioning or looking or hoping for something new and fresh every day?
I think it's pretty simple. Ultimately, it's that we don't have to wait for permission for leadership in our communities and in our country and in our world. we have more opportunities today to impact and influence culture than any group of people ever has in world history, largely thanks to this, which we have a huge love-hate relationship with
Yeah.
every day. But it's very, very simple in just being willing to get up and tell people the truth in whatever capacity you possibly can. That might look like running for office. That might look like becoming a teacher. That might look like getting involved in leadership positions on your college campus. Maybe that looks like becoming a content creator yourself, which I firmly believe every member of our generation should and can have the capacity to do that. But in a culture and in a time that's trying to silence you into submission, to
Mm,
believe in lies and to reject goodness and beauty in society, we are losing opportunities to fight for those things moving forward. And sadly, it does fall on our shoulders. So we can't afford to wait for permission or to be old enough or have enough life experience, whatever that's supposed to mean,
right.
to continue fighting. It really is up to us.
And I think to what you were saying earlier is that Gen Z has become great investigators. I see that with my kids. They investigate everything now, and they'll have all the answers for me. I've got all this, I got this link, I got that. And I really appreciate that about them because everything from the vaccination, like you're
Yep.
saying, birth control, um, God, history, all this now everybody can actually investigate and really find out the truth because of the phone and because of the culture that we're in. And I think the kids are just really big testers. They're going to find out what is the truth. They're
Yep.
going to find the truth. And then truly, I think they're going to share the truth. And so I really believe in the journey that they're on and that, we're going to make it. What do you think? I mean, now the kids politically how do you feel about the whole political world with Gen Z? I mean, this is another big discussion. I know you touched on it earlier, but you think that we're going to make it here?
I do. I really do. And I think we all should have hope for that. Culture is changing rapidly, which
Yeah.
also means downstream politics is as well. If you study exit pollings from the 2018, 2020, and 2022 election, it is a perfect diagonal line toward more conservative politicians, ballot initiatives, and policies with the youth vote. The race in 2020 in particular was a lot
Mhm.
closer to 50-50 than the left would have you believe, that all of these young people were overwhelmingly pro Joe Biden. And polling right now going into the November election is showing a lot of favorability with young voters toward Donald Trump, largely because of horrible, disastrous policy decisions like the
Right.
idea to take away our most utilized social media platform by the
Oh,
Biden
TikTok,
campaign
yeah, and
going into November.
you're big on TikTok, right?
I sure am, and I'm a big believer in its opportunity to change culture for Gen Z.
So you just referred to it that about President Biden taking that off. Your thoughts on that? Another way of suppressing the voice?
It absolutely is. Yeah. And I wish we had like 6 hours to talk about every single aspect of why I think it's a horrible slippery slope for government censorship.
Mm.
I've covered it probably 24 times on my live stream over the last year. But if you read these bills, including the one that was just signed by the president, the word TikTok is used once as a singular example for the type of content that's going to be regulated moving forward. Instead, what this did is it effectively gave the president of the United States, today that happens to be Joe Biden, unilateral control to police any website, social media platform, gaming app, etc., for anything that might be deemed an issue of national security from a foreign adversary. We already know that American citizens can be tried as foreign adversaries under the Patriot Act from the early 2000s. And what
Mhm.
is our current government doing right now? They are labeling traditionally Christian conservative Americans as terrorists or as these
Right.
extremists from society that we need to be silencing, like moms who testify at school board
Right, we're
meetings, or
domestic terrorists from the DOJ. Come
yeah,
on.
or Catholics who go to mass on Sunday as these radical
Right.
extremists. Heck, my friends over at Students for Life of America, amazing nonprofit organization, were actually put on a terrorist watch
Mhm.
list that is partially funded by the Department of Homeland Security last
Yeah,
week, right up alongside the KKK, Hamas, and ISIS. These
yeah,
are pro-lifers writing stuff in sidewalk chalk on the sidewalk. So it's just insane. Therefore, if I don't trust the government to accurately and adequately determine who is a foreign adversary, the first people that they're going to go after with this new law that is in fact law today is people like myself, like this podcast, like Charlie Kirk and Candace
right.
Owens. And I think that's a really dangerous precedent for us to be setting. and yet we're applauding it because we have fallen for the facade that it's all about China and national security. And in reality, the bill really doesn't even mention that.
All right, close us out. Tell us about the book and why you wrote it.
Well, most importantly, The End of the Alphabet, How Gen Z Can Save America
I
was
love
written
that title. That's great.
Thank you. It was written for Gen Zers, first and foremost, because we desperately need the green light to take on leadership opportunities in every capacity that we can. And when we're constantly being told a lie about who we are, it's time to share the truth with the world. But secondarily, and maybe even more importantly, this book was written for those who don't understand who Gen Z is, who their entire image of who we are is built around Fox News segments and what you're hearing on SiriusXM radio. And we all desperately need a little bit more hope going into this election and beyond. We are losing the opportunity rapidly to fight for traditional, timeless, conservative values, to fight for goodness, beauty, and truth in society. And if we
Mm,
can't give a seat at the table and a microphone to this next generation, we'll lose the opportunity to fight for it moving forward. But
yeah.
all of that to be said, I think we are absolutely headed in the right direction in this country. And the best thing that we can possibly do is continue to share the stage with this amazing group of
Yes.
70 million plus young people who are doing just that already without permission.
Well, I would agree because those are my three kiddos. They are Gen Z and I love them dearly. And I know all those moms that are listening today, even if we get frustrated with our kids or just, things that are happening in the culture, we are all in this together. And it is that next generation that will literally save America. We have to be investing in them because they are our hope and they are our future. Where can we follow you? How can we connect with you? How can we get your book?
You can buy a copy of my book anywhere books are sold. And if you go to a Barnes and Noble near you, I may have signed a copy secretly. So
Oh,
go check that out.
nice.
But also, you can find me across social media platforms at the Isabel Brown. We talk about all of these issues and more every day on my live stream, which airs at 3 p.m. Eastern across platforms.
Well, mamas, if your daughters are not following Isabel, they need to because she is speaking truth, hope, facts every day. So thank you for what you're doing, and congratulations again on that wedding. I'm so
Thank
excited
you.
for
Thank
you.
you so much.
What an incredible role model Isabel is. Thank you for being an incredible voice and just really sharing hope and truth to this generation. We so appreciate you. Also, if you are looking for her book, again, it's The End of the Alphabet. You can get it online. You can get it at Barnes and Noble. And then go ahead and please follow her. I think the Gen X moms are going to be very interested in this book, as well as the Gen Z kids wanting to catch up on what Isabel has to say about them. So love it. All right, moms, I also want to remind you to stop by our website at momsforamerica.us. Check out all of our resources, information that we have available for you. That is why we are here at Moms for America, to help you raise, nurture, teach, train, and love your children. We have a lot of great resources for you. We often say we have everything from the kitchen table to Congress, and we really do. So please check us out, momsforamerica.us. Sign up for that newsletter. We would really appreciate it. When you're there and you're checking out our resources and our webinars, our seminars, all those great things on there, those tools, check out the cottage meetings as well. That is our signature series where you can learn about America's incredible heritage and our history. So you can share those with your children and impact them in a powerful way, and also your community. We say this every week, moms, that you are the greatest influencer with your children in your home, in those four walls. You are the heartbeat of your home, and you are truly the heartbeat of America. That's why it's so powerful, this movement, because moms are really going to save America, and they are raising the next generation of heroes. All right, moms, please stop by next week for another inspiring and informative podcast for moms just like you. I say this every week. We moms, we are changing our world one home at a time. Talk to you soon.